Namaste. Krishna says, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water, so the yogi who acts without attachment, self-offered to the divine, is not affected by sensory experience, whether gross or subtle. I'd like to begin first by saying that the wording of these sayings is, I think, a very important part. Most Gitas, all Gitas that I've read in English, and because many of them have been translated from the Hindi, I have to say that probably the Hindi is not very good either. I got from my guru the understanding of what these things were, but he was not a master of English, he was Bengali. And I took his sayings and polished them and polished them and polished them. But I think that this polish that I have given these verses, I've compared them, 12 different Gitas I compared in English to make sure that I had the meaning right. But then I put it into English, not into a Hindu or an Indian's concept of good English. And I really think that part of the beauty of this language, of this Gita, now in this form, is its beautiful language. It's poetic. It has a rhythm. In a book that I'm working on called Do It Well, I speak of the importance of rhythm to good writing. I say, for example, that the most important word in a sentence should come at the end, so that's what you're left with. So I read this again because it states it, first of all, obviously the intention is to be poetic, but then also the rhythm of it and everything makes you sort of absorb it into yourself, rather than sort of trying to figure out what's he trying to say. So anyway, let me read this again. As the lotus leaf is untouched by water, so the yogi who acts without attachment, self-offered to the divine, is not affected by sensory experience, whether gross or subtle. Sensory experience is, you have two senses in a sense, I could put it that way. You have the physical organ of hearing, or organ of feeling, and then you have the power that animates that organ of feeling. A corpse has the same ear, but there's no life in that corpse, and so you can't hear. Actually, the hearing is the last thing to go. And so be careful. When people are on the operating table and a doctor feels that he's lost them, don't ever, if you're a doctor, never, while you're there in the operating room, never say, he's gone, I've lost him. Because that will be enough to discourage the soul. As long as there is life there, and the life lingers at last in this hearing faculty, as long as there's life there, don't say anything discouraging to him, because at that point he may just give up. This has happened many times. So, always, where there's life, there's hope. Another thing I have to insist on, however, so what if you do die? You just go on. You don't lose your life. You lose this body, but your body is just like a suit of clothes. Take it off, put another one on, and we have to go through life changing our clothes many times because they get worn out. So we have to change our bodies through eternity many, many times. And it isn't the tragedy that it seems. Still, it is your duty as a human being, as a living body, living form. It is your duty to keep living as long as you can, and that's why God has placed in every creature this desire for self-preservation. Nonetheless, when the time comes, just let it go. It doesn't really matter. Don't be afraid of death. The fact is that the only pain comes before death. The process of dying is actually a release. And people, after they have left their bodies, feel wonderful. And it often happens that that people, when they are beyond death, when they have died, they see all these people grieving. And they say, what are they grieving for? Because they know that they're much freer and much happier in their present state. And in fact, it's very difficult in this physical body to experience the high spiritual states. The body acts as sort of a block, a stone wall around you that makes it difficult to come out into the free air. That's why Krishna is saying that also elsewhere he says that the moment of death is very important, and the thought with which you die is vitally important. That's why he said, if you die with the thought of me, you come to me. If you die with the thought of the lower astral beings or your family or things like that, those are the ones you will go to. But when you have left your body, then any potential you have to attain freedom, Krishna also suggests in the Gita that for most people who are on the spiritual path, that moment of death is the moment when enlightenment or mukti or moksha will come. So that's why he says, at that death, think of me. I would say that it would be a good thing also to prepare yourself throughout life for that final exam. And so I've often said, at night before you go to sleep, build a mental fire and sort of mentally create this yajna, this havan kund, and then throw into it every attachment and desire that you might have. In the first verses of the Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra is saying to Sanjaya, my children, my sons, the Kauravas, and the sons of Pandu, the Pandavas, on the field of battle, Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, he said, which side won? What did they do? The key to the whole Bhagavad Gita is in that simple sentence. What did they do? Not what are they doing. In the story, actually, he is being shown Dhritarashtra is being shown these things as they are happening from a distance. But introspection always comes at the end of the day, when you see my worldly tendencies, my spiritual tendencies, which side won. So at night, try this. It's a very, very important practice. And it's preparing for that final exam too. Look over your day. Did somebody who came into your shop, let us say, did you quote him the right price, or do you think he's good for another few rupees? Well, if you were trying to cheat him in a little way, that was a wrong thing. Throw that desire to cheat into the flame. Throw that thought into the flame and say, I will never do it again. If you've talked to somebody unkindly or rudely, you even at the time you will have noticed there's a certain sort of disturbance in your heart. This is where you have to see these things. It's in the heart that the disturbances or the blessings come. So if your heart, when you acted like that, there was something that sort of recoiled from it, then know that this is a sign that you did something wrong. And so at night, before you go to bed, throw that thought into the fire and just see it being burned up and see your real self going up like smoke into the sky. You are free in yourself if you can act in that way. So at night, do this. And all through the day, even during the daytime you can do it. If you've done it, if you've treated somebody badly, catch it at the moment. That's the best time. But you can't do it while you're with him, so try to be calm in yourself and see it then. And if you have the power to do it at that time, and sometimes you will have that power, you treat somebody unkindly, and then you pause a moment and you say, oh, I'm sorry I was unkind, I didn't mean to be, please forgive me. These are all ways of helping you to get out of this bondage of delusion. And so Krishna is saying here, it's a wonderful illustration, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water, so the yogi who acts without attachment, self-offered to the divine, is not affected by sensory experiences, and the gross and subtle. The subtle experiences that we're talking about is the energy that is affected by it. You may have an experience in the world that offends your senses, but if in your heart you're offended, that's even more important. So that's your astral body, the body behind this physical body. And the seeds of karma remain in the spine like little seeds, literally like little seeds, waiting for the right conditions to flourish. For example, you may have had a strong desire for ice cream. Well, you may then be reborn in a North Country and be an Eskimo. But you can't really satisfy that desire for ice cream. They wouldn't bother with ice cream when they're surrounded by snow. That seed will remain, that tendency will remain like a seed until finally perhaps you're born on a desert and then you have that consciousness. This is a poor example and I apologize for it. But the thing is that the more you have to wait for the right conditions for this seed to sprout, but it may take a long time for those seeds to sprout. My guru talked of the thwarting cross currents of ego. When you are on the spiritual path and when you've given your desires to God, then these things come very quickly. But in the meantime, if you're still completely submerged in desires and attachments, you will start to pay off the karma of one thing, it'll take you on another direction. You sort of, first of all, you're just confused. But secondly, you can't deal with it right away. The circumstances may not come. There may be other things that intervene. The complexity of the karmic law is very great. And so it is that somebody may drop a stone on your head and nearly kill you, and then he may move to, let's say, from Delhi to Pune. And you won't be able to get to him, but he will get that himself in his own time. Something will drop a stone on him. It just happens that way. And you wonder, because the trouble with these things is that so many incarnations sometimes intervene between it. You may wonder what caused this? Why am I like this? And you blame God. Well, you must understand that these things don't work quickly. And it looks as if God is being unfair to you. But you will notice this also, that once you've paid that debt, once you've paid that karma, there is something lighter in you. That is why after great pain of illness or whatever it might be, afterwards you feel cleansed in some way. If you're sensitive, you will know that something's been lifted from you. It is true that sooner or later these things will come, but God has made this show so complex. And it's very easy to doubt God, because you just think he's being mean to you, he's treating you unfairly, and here you are starving to death, why can't he give you food? All the things that come to people. Yes, of course that doubt is natural. Yes, of course you can wonder, why? But in the end you will understand. And the more you become freed of these things, the more quickly your karma hits you. I told the story a few weeks ago about one time when somebody gave me a motorhome. Well, I had long wanted to have a motorhome because I thought it would be a wonderful way of touring the country and living in my own space and having my own things around me and keeping my vibrations more cohesive in that way. But, and then teaching people and helping them. But because of this desire, and because I had fulfilled it, I just surrendered to the delight. And I lay back and I absolutely laughed and laughed and laughed. And I knew that I would have to pay for that laughter. Well, because I'm a devotee and because I'm on the spiritual path, I knew that that would come much sooner than it might have if I had been blocked by all these thwarting currents. And sure enough, that very evening, the person who was driving the motorhome had it parked in a supermarket parking lot, and got up from the car. He thought he had it stopped properly, and went back to the refrigerator to get something out of it. And he didn't know it. I didn't know it, but the motorhome was gradually moving very slowly until finally it hit the wall of the supermarket. Didn't hurt the supermarket, but I was perched on one leg and one knee on a seat and reaching up to get something, so I was in a very precarious position. And as soon as it hit that wall, I was thrown onto the floor, and I broke a finger. And I looked at this finger; it was all twisted, all leaning in the wrong direction, and so on. And I laughed and laughed. I said, "How perfect this law is!" I wasn't attached, but really, it's actually a delight when you understand that everything is bliss. And if you've done something wrong, of course you want to pay for it. If somebody has loaned you money, don't you want to give it back? Well, some people would answer, no, why should I? but they will have to pay for that sooner or later. So if you're dharmic, you will want to pay it back. And if you have a debt to pay, which is bad karma, you might say, then you have to pay that back by going through whatever is needed. And the karmic law is just amazing in its absolute mathematical accuracy. If you treat somebody unkindly, somebody will treat you unkindly. It just has to happen. And if you treat people kindly, because many people think, oh, karma, there's good karma as well as bad. But that karma is a weight upon your consciousness. It prevents it's the little seeds in the spine which prevent the energy from rising freely and clearly to the brain. And so because of bad karma, people are stupid, people are dull-minded, or if their karma is clearer, then that energy can rise in the spine. So in yoga practice, what one tries to do, what the yogi tries to do, is raise his consciousness in the spine. And through Kriya Yoga, what you can do is turn those samskars in a right direction. And there's nothing evil in itself. When you can turn those samskars in the right direction, then what seemed evil becomes good. So this is what Krishna is talking about, the lotus leaf and the raindrop falling on the lotus leaf. Your experiences, if you aren't attached, if you don't think, I'm doing this, and sort of grasp onto the good ones and spurn the others and get all emotionally involved, if your heart is free, then like the lotus, like the water dripping on the lotus leaf, it slips into the center and you don't see it anymore. So Krishna says, be completely non-attached, and you'll find the whole problems of this world will just slip by you as if they didn't exist. This is freedom. Joy to you.